so much more present, intimate, better sex, which is what you've been craving for the whole time. Welcome back to another podcast episode with me, guys. And today we're getting into something dear to my heart, something intense. Essentially, it's stop validating yourself by sleeping with as many people as you can. This is what I'm getting into. One of my very first clients was a sex addict, one of my first one-on-one clients. And we started working through a lot of processes. And since then, I have worked with a lot of people in regards to overcoming their sex addiction. Like believe it or not, I have high-performing business owners come to me and chat to me, and they're like, why can't I do this? And I'm triggered here, and I can't get to this next thing here, and I can't get to this next level in business, and blah, 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 blah. And it all comes down to, it's like, well, you're seeking a lot of validation from other people. There's either, sleeping with as many people as possible every single week, someone new, like Tinder, Hinge, Instagram addictions, like trying to sleep with people, prostitution addictions, people scrolling on porn, masturbation, just always having to get a hit from looking at someone from the opposite sex. Now, these are most likely men. I don't know as much from the perception of women because I haven't dealt with any women who have, or worked with any women who have had sex addictions, but what I would assume from all the research that I've done is that it comes from a need of feeling accepted and feeling loved. And it's like, cool, I'm going to go have sex so that I can feel accepted and I can have love and confirm that, this energy is, mine. I'm receiving something here because I haven't got it elsewhere. That's what I'm assuming. And I know there's other different areas. So if you're listening to this, take what relates to you, because not all of this is going to relate to you, but some of it will, and what does and what will relate to you is going to absolutely blow your mind. So if you want to stop the need for trying to having to sleep with everyone, or like have to look at people on your phone all the time, or even when you're out in public or whatever it is, and you always feel like that every person that you talk to, you need a hit on. Every single person that you have a relationship with, you're like, oh, I can't have a relationship with the opposite sex because like they're going to have sex with me, I'm going to want to have sex with them. Like whatever, or there's this pressure where I have to, turn one on around this person, and I'm actually a little bit uncomfortable talking to the opposite sex. Especially like for men who struggle to go and talk to girls, it's like that is a good signal. For example, that there is, a sex addiction there, because it's like, there's so much pressure. And also if you don't struggle and you're talking to every single girl ever under the sun, and that's the only way that where happiness or validation comes from, then like, let's get into it. Because I went from needing validation from every single girl that I could see to only needing validation like from myself, until I got into a relationship, and the relationship sort of switched that around. It turned on for me all of the old cravings and systems that would come back, and it's like, wow, this is insane. Like where is this coming from? And then like for me, I converted that milder sex addiction, onto a partner. And if you can put that onto a partner, that creates a lot of pressure from them. And you're like, where's this coming from? Like, how did this even happen? Like, I thought I've overcome this, right? So it's really interesting. But essentially what happens is your edges rub up against your partners, and then, next minute, like, you're feeling, as a guy, as a man, it's like you're feeling guilty because you're looking at someone and you can't help it. It's like you are trying to grab attention from other women externally. Like there's a lot of guys that I work with who will message the women like, why am I messaging these other people? Or they are, they have had, sex relations with someone else. They've gone and cheated, blah, blah, blah. All of this stems from the same thing of like, okay, why is this happening, and why is this need there to have this? Like, I'm in a safe and secure relationship, so why am I sabotaging it? Like, that hasn't been 100% my experience with it, because I feel mine's been the opposite side. So on my experience, mine's like, okay, I'll cut everything out and stop blah, 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 stop like anything or contact with anyone else from the opposite sex when I'm in a relationship, which I think is actually unhealthy to do, because it should be a natural and a organic relationship with the opposite sex. But then you can notice in your mind, you're like, where does this come from? You're like, oh, that's a mild sex addiction. Like there's something going on there. Like, why do I have the need to have this? And I'm going to tell you why. It's interesting because it comes from, not sure if you've heard this before, but I see it a lot on my feed in coaching. There's people talking about anxious and avoidant attachment styles and theories. And I've done a lot of research on this recently because it's been blowing my brain. And I just did a podcast with Robert Glover, who's the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy. And all of the stuff that he talks about from No More Mr. Nice Guy essentially comes from anxious attachment and avoidant attachment theory. And I'll just be like, whoa, this makes so much sense. You know, I help people become the best version of themselves and set the standard. And you can't do that if this is in the way. And essentially what it is it's like it's like this need of attention seeking in some way in order to feel complete. Anxious attachment is where you act like the nice guy, you're the people pleaser, and you always find yourself in relationships where the other person needs space and you get uncomfortable with it. You're like, why does that person need space? Why does that happen? Blah, blah, blah. And then the avoidant attachment style is where you find that you need distance to feel safe. You're like, why do I feel like I need to go somewhere else? Why is like, am I being attracted to go over here? Or you have this independence and you don't know why it's causing arguments. You're like, oh, I just don't want to talk and have this and it's causing these arguments. I'm just going to like keep distancing myself. And like, I love this person, but I just need to keep distancing myself. And then you act out or feel like your partner's always unhappy. You're like, how come I can't like make my partner happy? Like that's the avoidant attachment style. And what happens is commonly people sort of bang between both. You know what I mean? They're like ping pong ball. They're like in, they're out. They're avoidant, they're anxious. They're avoidant, they're anxious. And then they create this like weave of, you know, what's happening inside a relationship. And in an intimate relationship, if you can't figure this out over a period of time, then it'll just eat the relationship away. And I was talking to a friend about this recently, and I was like, you know, what takes a world-class relationship? And the answer is it takes all of you consistently, all of your entire being, soul, everything, like, you know, to make that happen. And to do that, you have to get clear on your own attachment styles and how they work and how they work with your partner. Because if you can't figure those out, as soon as push comes to shove, your attachment style, whichever way, is going to rub up against the other person's. It's going to trigger their attachment style, and then that's going to reinforce and trigger your attachment style. And until you learn where it comes from, which I'm going to teach you in this, is that's just going to sabotage the entire relationship. So essentially, yes, and I want to mention, there's another point here that I've written down, was it also impacts how you show up in business. For example, like, because it's part of your personality and you can't escape it, right? Because all this stuff, it comes from like inner child work, it comes from you growing up. Like basically you got your parents, mum and dad, and they were role models. And then your experience as a child, however you had your experiences till now, what happens is when you were growing as a child and you were developing yourself, was you also developed ways of, you know, dealing and creating strategies to feel safe. And some of those strategies will be anxious attachment, and some of them will be avoidant attachment. And then they just start to play out through, you know, the rest of your life. And you have moments in your life where you have a huge breakup, or your business will fail, or something will happen. And that is what's going to force you, where you have to do growth. You have to do personal development. You have to do the work, because if you don't, then you just become lazy. You become cynical. You become resentful. You become spiteful. You become bored. You become comfort driven. You get completely stagnant and you're unhappy and unfulfilled, and you just want to sit down, watch TV and do nothing. And you get satisfied with that and you don't want to grow because everything feels like it's too much. When you have a big episode, if you don't go in and work on these things, you know, and if you don't go work on your attachment styles and become the best version of yourself, because that's what it takes. If you want to reach your full potential, it takes working on this. So anxious attachment in a sort of business and relationship setting is a fear of abandonment. So it's like any stage in your life, you're like, I felt like there is abandonment there and I don't want to get abandoned again. And it's been conditioned into your nervous system. Essentially, you are anxiously attached and you might engage in affairs of inappropriate relationships out of fear of losing your partner. Like, oh, I don't want to lose my partner. I don't want to lose my business partner. I don't want to lose my business. I don't want to lose this, right? Abandonment issue. Which can lead to emotional turmoil and distraction, severely impacting their focus and decision-making in business. This can come in regards of writing block, content block, traveling block. Should I fire someone? Should I hire this person? What should I do? Like all of these questions, like, oh, should I do this? I can't make the decision and I can't seem to focus. I can't like create ideas and whatever it is because I'm so caught up living in the future, fearing that I'm going to lose everything or lose someone. And that is, you can solve that. Like that, you can heal that. If there's a wound there, you can legitimately heal that wound, or you can fix that problem about yourself by working on your nervous system and your brain and reprogramming your mind and your heart together so that it doesn't come up anymore. Like the voice will still be there, like quiet, because I think it always will until something comes and triggers you to teach you more about it. But you can integrate the hell out of that. Second one, for avoidant attachment, this is how it shows up. It's a need for independence. So someone with an avoidant attachment might pursue sexual relations outside their primary partnership to feel less confined and maintain a sense of freedom. So this person in their situation, they're always like, I need to feel free. I need to go here. I need to go travel here. I need to go do this thing. I need to go do this by myself so I can feel free, because when I'm with you, I'm scared. You know what I mean? And I just have this safety thing where like, okay, I'm scared in here because like this is unsafe for me and it's unnatural. This behavior can create chaos and mistrust in personal relationships, spilling over into business environments and disrupting teamwork and collaboration. So this will happen when we're like, no, I need to be Mr. or Mrs. Perfect. You know, I can do this one by myself. I don't need to ask for help here. Like, oh, this is annoying. I might as well just go do it all by myself. Like, don't you worry about it. Like, I'm going to go and do it. Like, oh man, it's so annoying every time you start. Just let me do it. You know, just let me do the thing. Or like, oh, I'm just going to fire everyone and do it all by myself, right? That is what happens in avoidant attachment styles. And being in this situation is, you know, it's another way, it's just another coping mechanism to make sure that you feel safe, right? To make sure that you feel safe. Now, when it comes to this and a sex addiction, essentially like what's happening is that anxious attachment is like or you're sleeping with a lot of people is like, I need to feel like I don't want to lose anyone. So I'm going to try to get with as many people as I can so that no one leaves me, right? And then the need for independence and avoidant attachment is, you know, I need to be like by myself, but I also want people to confirm that like being me is okay. So I'm going to like independently, it's my decision. I'm going to go and get with as many people as I can, which is like so interesting that comes up. Now, it's not just what I want to like really communicate in this is it's not the symptom of getting with as many people as possible to confirm your validation is just a symptom. It's not the root cause and it's not the actual problem, right? If you go back one phase, you've got the symptom and then you've got why. The why is anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. That's why you have this need for validation. And it can even be validation of posting on social media, being sexual in this way to try to get a sort of hit to confirm that like, you know, you're hot or you've got approval. But the root cause of where it comes from or where the work is what we're going to get into. And this is the crazy stuff, right? Most of it comes from sexual shame. Right? That's where the root cause comes from. I've been learning a lot about this, especially after talking to Robert Glover, like in the podcast. It just blew my brain. And reading his book is like sexual shame. You can ask yourself this question: was your very first sexual experience, even if it was by yourself, what was it? Was it hidden? Could you tell your family? And would they celebrate you for it? Most people, definitely not. And then you think about this question: okay, was it secretive or was it hidden away, or could you be completely open and guilt-free about your sexuality from your childhood all the way up until now? And if you think about all your sexual experiences since then, most people that I speak to are like, it's pretty intense. Like it was pretty secretive. It was pretty hidden. It was hidden away. I had to like, everything was like so private and not talked about. And I couldn't talk to it about it with anyone. And I felt very alone in that time. And it had all these things like sort of happen. Like most people have stuff happen like in their like childhood or the teenage years that they regret or they feel shame about or they didn't mean to do or something like that. And then that like puts this weight on them. And they're like, oh my gosh, like this is heavy and tense. And I'm not okay. I'm not normal and I'm not allowed to, you know, tell anyone this. And I have this secret, blah, 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 that we have. And all of that is increasing our anxiously attachment or avoidant attached, because depending on how we reacted to that, we reacted some way growing up at some experience sexually where we're like, okay, I need to be anxiously attached here, or I need to be avoidantly attached in this situation. Now, for example, you could have had like a parent leave you when you were early, like young, you know, 4 or 5 years old. And then what happens is you were used to that happening. Like, oh, I've got this fear of abandonment. And then your very first sexual experience could have, you know, mirrored that same thing. It's like, oh, I don't want to be abandoned. So I'm going to make sure that, you know, I'm going to like latch onto this person because I don't want them to go. And now next minute your first, or even if it's like, you know, by yourself, whatever it is, it's like, okay, now I have reacted in an anxious attachment way to the sexual experience. And now I've dumped some shame on. I'm like, oh man, there's some shame around here. And I can't talk to this. I don't want to tell about anyone because that means there's something wrong about me. And I just want to confirm everyone who's listening to this, no matter what the experience like that you've had, is like, there's nothing wrong about you, whether your desires, your experience, or anything else that you had like growing up. There's nothing wrong about you whatsoever. It's just your experience. And it's completely like, I'm not going to say it's okay unless someone's had like some really intense stuff happen, but like, I'm just validating like your entire sexual experience, especially from when you're young to where you are now. And like that is yours. And there's it's not that, that's not to say, because I can't say that there's anything wrong with it, but I hope you guys can get the gist of what I'm saying. Like, there is a shame that we dump on ourselves that once we release makes us feel so much free by accepting and forgiving like where we're at. And obviously some people are going to have a lot more like shame and trauma than other people, which I find is, pretty insane. But in both cases, scenarios lack freedom and they lack celebration in your own sexuality, which creates a hole that needs to be filled in some way, right? And you fill this hole, like people have this need to fill this hole through some sort of sexual encounter, whether it be flirting via text message, whether it be sleeping with someone, whether it be like, messaging someone, I don't know, whatever it is, but there's like this hole because of the lack of freedom and celebration that you had in your own sexuality, which creates this, right? And when you go back to yogic practices and chakras and all that stuff, it's like your sexual energy is like, it's the first power, like it's the root cause and power. It's the sacral energy right down, in your perineum, like it's down there, like that's where that energy comes from. And if that gets blocked or you feel some shame or some way, that's going to affect your power. And no matter how much you learn and how much you study and how much you try to think your way out of shit, it's never going to work, because it's like that's lacking trust in faith in your own skill and ability to show up. Like there's a lack of confidence there. And essentially what we're desiring from this situation in here for like trying to get our power and have our, our sexual freedom, is what we're desiring is intimacy, right? And it's disguised as a need for validation. An example is, I'm good enough when someone else confirms to me that my sexuality is okay and that I'm allowed to feel sexual, is the question the child asks inside us. Basically like, is it okay? Am I allowed to be sexual, right? Am I good enough when someone else confirms that my sexuality is okay, and am I allowed to feel sexual? Like, can I feel this? Like, is that okay? Is that okay? Is the question that we're asking all the time. So for example, when someone goes and gets a hit of sexuality, they go, oh, I'm okay. Oh, I'm allowed to have this desire. Oh, I fit in. Oh, I'm enough. Oh, this is so good. So every time we're just getting this hit of like dopamine, and it's never enough for the people who have sexual trauma. Like if you're in this position, no matter how many hits that you get from a partner, from the internet, from messaging people, from going crazy, it's never, ever, ever going to be enough, which creates these absolutely unrealistic expectations from your partner, right? Like if you're in a relationship, it creates these massive unrealistic expectations from them to fulfill. It also creates unrealistic expectations in business and friendships. And there's this need where you just don't want, if it's anxially attached, you don't want people to go. And then you have these, people in avoidant attachment styles. I'm actually not too sure how they would show up. I would assume that they would show up if this was like, is this okay? Am I allowed to feel me? Of being like, I need to be in by myself. I need to go do this. Oh, trigger, I'm going to go by myself. That's essentially like what I think is going to happen. And it's going to be like, you won't be able to focus. You'll be distracted when you get triggered. And essentially it's like, oh, I don't know what to do. All I need to know is I got to go. So that's what's going to happen. And then if you want to be undistractable and focused in building the life of your dreams and running your business, you got to clear this out. You got to get rid of this shit. It's going to get out your body, because the conditioning nervous system, even talking about it now, it's like I can feel my whole body's like, whoa, like, because all of this stuff is just like, it's kind of heavy, like, because I got a bunch of it myself, like heaps of sexual trauma. I was looking back at like from when I was a kid to when I was at now, and I was like, I've had some amazing, beautiful sexual experiences that are just absolutely incredible. But I'm like, most of it from when I was a kid until I'd say my mid-20s, I tried to hide all of it. Like all of that was hidden. And it's like, man, that's a 20-year period, you know what I mean? Of just like hiding that energy that you have about yourself. It was probably 15, right? 15-year period of like trying to hide that about yourself. So it's like, man, this stuff is like, it's got to be loved and it's got to be integrated in order to let go. And you can do it. I'm going to teach you. This is how you can do it. If you're like, oh, Corey, how do I get rid of this shit? Like, teach me, right? This is what you do. You can get rid of it by simply talking about it, talking about the negative experiences with someone that you trust, who's not going to give you sympathy. Oh my God, poor you. That's the worst thing ever. That must be so hard, right? Not giving you sympathy and just validating your experience. Like, yes, I can understand. Like, how does that make you feel? You know what I mean? How'd you feel that situation? So someone who can do that you trust, who's not going to, judge you, and then trying to find the positive in the experience. And if you can't find the positive in the experience, because some people is intense, like their sexual trauma, is forgive yourself for it. Okay, I forgive myself for it and all parties involved. You know what I mean? So And when you do that, all the pent up energy that's making you need to get sexual fulfillment or like leave people and you can't connect, like all of that, you'll become more relaxed, you'll be more calm, and you'll be more control of your impulses. And then also know that it's going to take some time. Like it's not going to be like, oh, I did a week, I figured this out, I went back and it's going to work. It's like, no, you got to look at these impulses in every single way, shape or form. Like I've been over the last 2 weeks since I like talked to Robert, I've been clear on every single one of my impulses. Like even like if I'm joking around and I push a friend in the pool, you know what I mean? I'm like, where did that come from? You know what I mean? Try to everything that I say, it's like I go back and like, where did that one come from? Was that an impulse or was that a reactivity? Like where was that? Has that got something to do with my shame or has that got to do with something else? Right? Insane. So, and then what happens for men in particular is when you let this go, you can also hold on to ejaculations longer because your relationship to sex shifts. And I don't know this for like 100% a fact for other people, but it has worked for me before. And every time that I've released some sort of sexual shame, my sex life has gotten better, like every single time. So, and this is my assumption, this is what I think is why, is it's less focused. You're less focused on getting a high and a hit to satisfy a need or a hole rather than having an experience of pleasure to just lean into. Because that hit and that high is like hyper excitement, right? It's like a drug addict. You know, if you think about a drug addict that you see in the movies or something, or if you know anyone that is a drug addict, they're like, oh, I can't wait to get a hit. I'm gonna do everything that I can. Or even someone who's like loves coffee, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, I need to get that coffee. And they like get hyped and rushed and have this like, you know, chaotic energy. It's like, I need to have a coffee. I need to have my hit. I need to go and get this. You know, then they have a hit in their release, you know what I mean? It's control and release phase, which is a whole cycle of shame, which I talk about in another podcast. But if you're not having that hyper arousal need to get a hit and your body calms down and you're like, oh, this is an experience that I get to have of pleasure to lean into, bang. So much more present, intimate, you know, better sex, which is what you've been craving for the whole time, which is most likely going to be with a partner that you've, you know, cultivated a relationship with over a long period of time. That's going to help you like lean into that, right? Which is absolutely fantastic and amazing. I think it's so beautiful that that can happen. So I hope you guys got a lot of value from this podcast. If you did, please subscribe. Yes, intense, it's heavy. I hope I've helped you guys today. And just letting you know, this was heavy lifting, right? Just even listening to this is heavy lifting, and it's a heavier read if you guys are reading it. But it's extremely powerful for your own personal breakthrough. We all want to be free. We want to feel free in our business, free financially, free sexually, free in relationships. And that sense of freedom comes from doing the work to make sure that we can let go of any of the patterns and conditioning that has held us back as a child. It's a part of our hero's journey. It's a part of our entrepreneur's journey. Every time we step into a new phase to becoming the best version of ourselves, something like this comes up, and it's our responsibility to face it and integrate it. And if we don't, then we just remain stuck and stagnant. So if you want to learn this and you want to get over your stuff and you're a guy or you're a woman and you're listening to this and you're like, man, my partner needs some of this, like send them on, come join Set the Standard. As a podcast listener, you guys get a cheeky discount if you message me. No one else gets that. You guys are lucky to listen to this one. And that's it, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Let's go. Choose your podcast.